Tafadhali. Or Dr. Mutumbo if he's quicker. Aya, karibuni, Chairperson NCIC and your commissioners. I think I'll do a quick introduction from my right, Honorable Amina, from Kilifi County, Malindi. Mheshimiwa Eugene Wamalwa, I'm sure you all know him. My co-chair, temporary, the deputy delegation leader, Honorable Pio Andai. Mheshimiwa Senator Omar, Mheshimiwa Catherine Wambilianga, and co-chair Kimani Shongwa. We have apologies from our co-chair who will be joining us in the afternoon. His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, Governor Cecily Mbarire, and Senator Aaron and Senator Mugani who are in Turkana County. Aribuni, if you can do the same quick introduction, Chairperson, and go straight to your presentation in less than 20 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair and co-chair and members of this bipartisan national dialogue. With me are all the commissioners. On my immediate right is Wambui Nyutu, who is the vice chair of the commission. Next to her is Engineer Philip Okundi, and Sam Corner at the other end. And on my left, we have Dr. Danivas Makori. We have Honorable Dorcas Kedogo. And we have Honorable Farah. And then we have the CEO, the acting CEO, and the secretary to the commission. So that is the team that we have. First of all, we want to congratulate you on being entrusted with such responsibility. The whole country and even beyond Kenya are looking up to you, and therefore we wanted to really say that we wish you well, because the outcome of this process is going to be extremely important for this country. Thank you for your invitation. We were invited and asked to come to make an oral presentation, and we were asked to make that presentation based on the 5 areas of issues that you are dealing with.
And Chairman, maybe if you have another copy of the document you are reading, you could share with our secretary to make copies for us.
Chair, we are making an oral presentation, as I say, but we have copies that will make copies for you. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. So what we decided to do, Chair, because we were asked to address either all of the 5 issues or some of them, our decision was to address only some of them, and that these are the ones that we consider to be relevant to our work. And there are 5 main issues that we have identified that we wanted to present. Number 1 is the issues related to structural inequalities, because this is what led to the problem of 2007-2008 conflicts, which led to the formation of, among others, the short-term TJRC through the Justice and Reconciliation Commission. And that was from the National Dialogue and Reconciliation Agreement of 1st February 2008. And then following that, The TJRC did its work, presented its report and recommendations, but then it was found that it was necessary to have a more long-term commission to continue to address the issues that led the country into what has been the worst type of elections-related conflicts and violence in this country. And that is how the NCIC was formed. And so that is why we feel, Chair, that addressing structural inequalities and disputes that were addressed by TJRC, but have not been resolved. And our understanding is that the report and the recommendations of the TJRC now lie with Parliament. We wanted to recommend here that this report be now acted upon, and Parliament has that responsibility. And as NCIC, we consider ourselves as the most natural successor to TJRC on long-term basis, and we are ready to implement those recommendations, because unless and until those recommendations are implemented, we will continue to have the problems that led to that problems continue. Secondly, and related to that, Chair, is the issue of historical grievances and unresolved issues, especially to do with the land, to do with the boundaries, the boundary disputes, and which, although had been addressed in the TJRC report, have not been implemented. And the historical marginalization, which devolution clearly has addressed but not adequately, also continue to be an issue related to historical grievances. And we know, Chair, that this is what led to the need for equalization fund, and this has done very well in terms of addressing the historical grievances, but it has not adequately addressed it. We also wanted to say that related to funds, that what has been already seen here as the need for, and you have it as item number 4, entrenching funds into the Constitution. We wanted to add to this that the constitutional commissions and independent offices should also be funded in a way that is entrenched in the Constitution. And in the same breath, we recommend strongly that the NCI Act, which created the NCIC, should be anchored in the Constitution. And it is that way that if the funding then is also assured, then our work, which I must say is very much affected by lack of sufficient funding, that also will be addressed, because we feel very strongly that funding that for our commission especially, we are only funded for the current budget. As far as the work of peace building and other related work is concerned, this is mostly funded through donor money. And we feel that the work that we do in peace building is so important that its funding should not be left to the donors. In fact, our submission here is that what is considered as hardware and software in dealing with the conflicts, hardware, of course, being done by armed forces, but the software which follows and which ensures lasting peace is not funded sufficiently. And we feel that Exchequer should fund it, and it should be considered as part of the national values and ethos of Article 10, and that it is actually to do with the sovereignty of this country. And therefore, just as it has been recommended here to have the funding of national government constituencies, national government affirmative action, and the Senate Oversight Fund, we should also add here the funding of constitutional commissions and independent offices should be included. The third area, Chair, is to do with the implications of youth unemployment. We wanted to present this chair here because in the hotspot mapping that NCIC did in the run-up to the elections, our findings were, in some cases, really very worrying in that the proliferation of armed gangs in this country is not given adequate attention. And particularly because we now have thousands of very well-educated young people who are unemployed. And they are using their knowledge. Some of them are scientists, others are biologists, etc., chemists. And that is important to recognize that the nature and even if I would call it the quality of the violence that these gangs are doing is now beyond what is traditionally seen as the problem of youth. We realized that if we look at this, then youth unemployment is a time bomb which, if not addressed adequately, will clearly lead to this country exploding. It is for that reason, therefore, we wanted to say that we address the issue of youth and unemployment in a way that any funding that would be used in this, including the funding of, as we have said, the constitutional commissions, and particularly in our case, NCIC, we are very much involved in this work that we feel when adequately funded, we will deal with the issue of youth unemployment. The fourth issue is what we call the national architecture for peace building and cohesion. I would say that when you consider the peace building in this country, the arena of peace builders, if you wish, and the peacemakers is both congested and contested. And unless there is proper coordination at the national level, then it remains that because many of these, some of them are briefcase peacemakers and peace builders, and there is even contradiction in what is being done by different bodies, including state actors and non-state actors. When it comes to state actors alone, we see that there is, the NSC, the Small Arms Committee, the NCIC itself, and many others, and not to talk of civil society organizations who have taken it upon themselves to do peace building. And unless this is well coordinated at the level at the national level, where there is a clear understanding of who is doing what, where, and how, then it means that peace building could itself be a source of conflict. And that is why we feel that the coordination at the national level is absolutely critical, because this will therefore also lead to addressing the issues of Article 10 of the Constitution. Now, for this to happen, certainly there has to be well-funded commissions and institutions that are doing that work. In our work, we have seen that peace dividends are critical. A good example here is what happened only last week in Samburu. For the last half a year, Chair, we have been addressing the issue of Moranism, and we have reached a point where we launched a program of Warani SME groups, starting with Samburu, and we are cooperating with the Ministry of Cooperatives to address this issue, because what the Morans said is they will leave the cattle rustling and banditry only if they have alternative means of livelihood. And alternative means of livelihood can actually be provided for, and the ministry has assured us that they will do just that. That is why I'm bringing the issue of peace dividends here, because once they form themselves in groups, then they will be funded, they will leave banditry and cattle rustling, and this will resolve one of the outstanding triggers of violence and conflicts in this country. We also have another example, Chair, of how peace dividends can be handled, and this is the cooperation, again, between peace and development in the Amaya Triangle, where Baringo, Samburu, Laikipia, and Isiolo came together, and we consider this as a model of how regions can come together and be able to make the best of the funds like equalization fund that we have referred to. And therefore, we want to recommend that, again, coming to software, the interface between software and hardware. Fifth and finally, Chair, is the issue of boundaries. In our work, we have come to realize that out of the 47 counties, that 3 have boundary disputes. That 3 counties have boundary disputes. And we want to say that the processes that are addressing the existing issues should be taken into account when it comes to delimitation of boundaries. The delimitation of boundaries, which will be done by IBC, should be done in such a way that it will not exacerbate the existing boundary disputes or deepen structural inequalities or lead to violent conflicts among communities. It is in this way that we as NCIC would like to look at the issue of boundaries. And these boundaries are part of what we are calling structural inequalities. We know that from history in this country, it was a policy of colonial government to create a landed class and a landless class, the Swinnerton Plan, those who would remember this. And this, unfortunately, was not adequately handled by the independent Kenya, because even the session paper of number 10 of 1965, although it had done very well, it actually did not address the issue of structural inequalities, inequalities that were created by government as a matter of policy. It is for that reason, therefore, Chair, we feel that we will need now to address this issue and avoid further problems that can actually be resolved. And we look forward very much to the findings and report of this committee to really address those issues, because unless and until these problems that we have identified are addressed, then we will continue to experience violent conflicts, and this country will not be peaceful and united and cohesive as we would like it to be. Thank you, Chair, and I think I have stayed within the time that you gave me. We will, as I have said, provide a text for the Secretariat on
Thank you, Chair.
Orally.
Maybe if I will be the first one to go, just from where you've ended on matters cohesion and boundaries, we have seen a number of representations, people asking for counties in the delimitation of boundaries, some constituencies that are, in some views, largely ethnic-based. What would your view be in the establishment of new constituencies or new county boundaries that are largely along ethnic lines? Omar?
Chairman Ribu, my first question is, in your own estimation, has there been any much progress made in terms of healing the ethnic divisions we have in this country? Because even as we go into politics, we see the SI unit of political mobilization is largely ethnic groups. So I just want to appreciate your appreciation of how much progress you have made since the establishment of the NCIC, not just your term and even the terms of others. In terms of the clear line between hate speech and freedom of speech is quite a thin one. I remember once NCIC did a report which I found extremely insightful, and I was at that time at the KNCHR. So I used that report into an article, and I was very happy that the same, then one of the members of parliament, then, no, he was a